Have you ever seen a normally calm person completely lose their What happened? One of me teachers in high school was the calmest dude. Never yelled, never told kids off, would just laugh and smile and wait for us all to calm down and then continue with his teaching. One day we must have been particularly rowdy and we weren't calming down like we usually did. He couldn't get a word in edgeways. I could see him getting increasingly frustrated and eventually he just bellowed "shoot up" and the entire class was shocked into silence. He never had to do it again. Ma. Reminds me of a Vietnam vet history teacher we had. Everyone would always ask a related question to know. He would just go off about for the rest of the period if we didn't feel like going on about whatever today's topic was. Everyone always found out later that he lost 3 of his 4 kids to cancer due to his Agent Orange exposure. We had a teacher a bit like this. She was a lovely, sweet old lady. She taught cooking, textiles, and something else, I think maybe maths. I can't remember, and she'd often take part in the lessons and bring cupcakes and sweets to her classes. She'd often call people her little sweeties and darlings. She would tell us we could talk if we want, but not too loud, and please listen to her when she gives instructions. She was kinda like another grandma, and everyone would absolutely love having her. Her teacher just let us watch favorite film and do nothing for one lesson. Then in the next other teacher carried on that film. Then we played this game in our 3rd lesson and then did nothing in the last 2 classes. We had Miss Smith in our 1st class and you lucky bastard, you win, your day was better. But I did say what we did, we just worked. Doesn't matter. You had Miss Smith on in time. One of our first few classes with her, my class were a little too rowdy. She didn't snap, but she looked close to tears and a few people noticed and managed to get everyone's attention. Even those who were being quiet apologized and gave her a big group hug. We never misbehaved in her class again. At the end of year 9-13, 14-year-olds, we were told who which form tutor would be in for the next year, and one group found out they were going to be in hers and they went around with shit-eating grins for weeks. Last week of the school year and she announces she's retiring. So many people cried and so many people brought in gifts for her, even those who didn't have her. This happened with me physics teacher in high school. He was such an amazing and friendly dude and everyone absolutely loved him. He had a loud booming voice and you could hear him down the hall laughing and having a good time. Having him use that voice to tell one of me classmates to shut up was startling to us all. I don't remember what exactly the kid was doing, but he was somehow being unsafe in lab. A normally busy classroom fell completely still and you could hear a pin drop. What I absolutely loved about that encounter was that at the end of telling the boy off he finished it with a stern "man up." One of the girls mumbled in the back that she hated that term, and me teacher heard. He turned to her and kindly said, "I'm sorry, you are completely right." Then turned back to the boy and sternly said grow up to amend his problematic statement. Only time I think anyone saw him yell, although from what I remember it was well justified. I was chilling at a friend's house as a kid. His dad was the chillest, nicest guy. That day, my friend's mom, also super nice, was across the street talking to the neighbor about something that I can no longer recall. Neighbor was one of those guys who never respected common etiquette. Music blaring, parking his shitty boat in front of other people's house, cars parked on the lawn. The neighbor started screaming at the mom and we all went out on the stoop to see what was happening. As soon as we got outside, the guy called my friend's mom a cunt. Well, my friend's dad heard that and went full Hulk mode. He ran screaming across the street and just fucking decked the guy and crouched over him shouting warnings and threats. Took a while for his wife to calm him down. I don't think any of them had ever seen him react to something in that way, maybe even the dad himself. Warnings and threats after conking him in the face, this is exactly how villains should be explaining their evil plans. Beware the wrath of a patient man. Keep me wife's name out yo fucking mouth. Knew all martial arts instructor, Master C, super nice guy, very low key, and super good at kung fu. Like the best I've ever seen in person. One day, some guys in the next yard were insulting his wife while she gardened, because she was Chinese. Master K snapped and went after them. The three dudes never even made it off their porch. I worked as a line cook with a chef who we became really good friends with. Really chill dude, easygoing, and actually super fun to cook with. He taught me most of what I know about cooking, and I owe him a lot for me success. Never really saw him get mad until one day we were getting slammed during busy night and one of the servers said something that really ticked him off, not sure if I ever heard what it was, but next thing I knew he had sent the deep fryer basket flying at Machon across the kitchen, nearly missing Thedish kid and shattering a light bulb. He stormed off and 5 minutes later, after a smoke break, came back and casually continued cooking as if nothing had happened. He apologized about it the next day and we never talked about it again. The restaurant industry is a stressful place. Oh yeah, when the servers start asking stupid questions, it's very easy to get pissed. There was one particular time when Matt got super glue in his eye while on the line. Trying to continue to control the chaos of the kitchen, he goes into the back and you hear three loud bangs up against the side of the building. Dude had a sledgehammer he swung when he had so much pent-up anger. That wall still has all the damage from him 5 years later. Nearly missing Thedish kid. How hard did it hit Thedish kid? Can confirm, restaurants are a special place where you can almost kill someone one shift and then shoot the shit with them next shift. Happens. Had a server that would constantly forget to put her appetizers. So whenever she would realize her appetizers not in the window, she would expect us to drop what we were doing and expedite her order. Chefs snap in next level ways. A guy I went to culinary school with ended up in prison for throwing a frying pan at a waitress over hard-to-read tickets during a Christmas rush. When I was in my late teens, I was financially irresponsible and borrowed money from my grandparents to move out of my mom's house. We made a plan on how we would pay it back in installments, and I only missed 2 payments. With each one, he called me granddad and asked if it was okay. He was always cool about it. One day, I got a call from him and he was livid, screaming at me on the phone, and I could hear me grandmother crying in the background. He was the angriest I've ever heard anyone in my life, and I was terrified. He wanted to know why I hadn't made the payment that month, but I was sure I had. It turns out I had accidentally set the automated payment to be drawn from the wrong account, and it had done it. It was an honest mistake on my part, and I explained that to him. I transferred the money immediately, and he instantly calmed down. I later found out he had become an alcoholic after he quit smoking, and he would talk to me grandmother like that regularly when no one was around. Sounds terrifying and a sad situation. I used to see this woman in me building every day. Very friendly. We always checked on each other's lives. We had lunch a few times over the years. It was friendly to a certain degree. A couple years passed. She was much older than me. Older than much older than bird. One day, riding the elevator, She told me that she was saying goodbye. I said I was sorry to see her go and asked why. She said she was retiring that day. I asked if her office was throwing a party or if she was celebrated. She turned to me and her face contorted into an image of rage. She clenched her teeth and said she did tell anyone in her office, including her bosses. She only told her person last week. This was her last day and she was never returning to see or talk to anyone in her office again. I can understand her. When workplace becomes so unbearable that you don't even want to see the faces again. Oh, whoa. Glad she is no longer working at a place she hated. But damn. Like a light switch on that one. Poor lady. Well, there's a story there I'm very curious about. It takes a lot to make my mom yell. On the rare occasion she did yell, it still felt like she had self-control. Like she yelled on purpose, because there was a reason to yell, like she needed to be that loud for us to hear loose, or one of the kids needed to learn to never run into traffic again. But one morning when we were teenagers, my brother was being really, really difficult. And me very sweet, soft spoken mother yelled God. Damn it, Sean, and threw a butter knife down so hard it stuck, 1 or 4 inch deep, in oak hardwood floor, against the grain. But the grain, I can still hear the noise it made. We were all very, very well behaved for the rest of the day. I did eventually ask my mom why she did that. Her explanation was that she felt she was too angry to hold a knife, even a butter knife, and was trying to get it out of her hand before she did something stupid. She was clearly right in her assessment of her mental state. I really respect people like your mom. It takes a lot of self-control to harness your emotions productively. Shows she's a considerate person who thinks about the effects she has on other people. This is not me story but my dad's. Growing up, his best friend Leaf was a quiet shiga that was a bit socially awkward. In school he wasn't physically bullied, but this own kid teased him constantly. This would have been late 50s, early 60s, so kids were expected to just tough it out. My dad would usually confront the kid, but one day a girl runs up to him and says that Leaf and the kid are fighting. My dad runs over to save Leaf, but when he breaks through the circle he finds the bully flat on his back, Leaf sitting on his chest, holding him by the ears and smashing his head into the pavement over and over. My dad tackles him, wrestles him to the ground and screams at him, asking what he's doing. The thing that stayed with me from that story was how he described it. It was like there was nothing in there. I felt like I could see the back of his skull through his eyes. Luckily they were kids, so the damage was serious but limited. The bully escaped with stitches and a concussion, and Leaf had to talk to the school psychologist. My dad and Leaf stayed best friends, and when I met him as an adult, he was still quiet but less shy and awkward. Man, me grandma has a similar thing. This boy was a couple years older than she was, and he was constantly picking on her. He's riding his bike home from school one day, and he rides past her and he's shouting at her, and she knocks him right off his bike and beat the shit out of him. My sweet little granny. The neighbor that saw it said he was proud as shit that she beat the snot out of this shitty kid, lol. I think it was the start of me grandma's bad bitch streak, because not much later she started street racing. She was allegedly a sweet little girl, but man, I think she must have had a mean streak in her. Did your dad ever tell you why Leaf did it, or what broke him to do that at that moment? That reminds me of the movie A Christmas Story. Yo, is Leaf still alive? If he is and you talk, give him a high five from a girl that was beaten in school and solved it the same way. Dude, this is some villain arco right here. I had a friend who was in his 60s, a functioning alcoholic, but he was the most calm and composed guy I have ever known. He never used to raise his voice or swear. Everything was done with meticulous precision. He once explained to me that if you use vulgar language and shout all the time, then you will have nowhere to go when you really do get angry. I had worked with him for about 3 years, never heard him raise his voice or swear before. The week before he had been shafted on his pay and the manager promised to get it sorted by Friday. Friday rolled around and it had not been sorted. So when me friend walked up to the manager in the open office and declared loudly, "Where the fuck is me money? You promised this would be resolved." The whole office went silent and the look of dread on the manager's face was haunting. The money was in his account by the end of the day. That was him losing his shit. Edit. Spelling. He once explained to me that if you use vulgar language and shout all the time, then you will have nowhere to go when you really do get angry. I'm gonna turn this into a poster and hang it on me wall above me piece so we never forget. Oh, I hate it when managers don't drop everything to fix pay mistakes. As a manager and an employee, I understand mistakes happen. But when it comes to pay, you never ever fuck around. It's literally the only reason the employee works for you. Any errors in payroll need to be corrected immediately and followed up on with the employee to make sure they are satisfied with the correction. This is the only way. Trust people until they need to be reminded you trusted them. Misspelling meticulous precision is about as ironic as it can get. My grandfather was very much the same. He was the calmest and sweetest man ever. I never heard him yell or get mad with the exception of one time. My mom had taken her car to get fixed and me grandpa drove his 5-year-old me and my mom to go pick it up. Halfway home it broke down again. My grandpa was behind us and picked us up. My mom assumed he'd drop us off at home, but nope. He turned and drove straight back to the dealership and went inside. Who the fuck fixed that car? You put me, daughter, and me grandbaby in a car you knew was safe. I want to know to fuck thought that was okay. The whole dealership was silent. Tom was a nice guy. He did swear or get mad. My mom was terrified. They bought me mom's car and sold her a new one at discount. Then we all get back in the car, and he cracks the biggest smile and says you don't have to be mad. They just have to think you are. He laughed at himself all the way home eat it. I can't type this morning apparently. A gentleman is never unintentionally rude. 2 meanings. One should always try to be respectful to others. Also, if I'm being rude to you, I'm doing it on purpose. Where's the fucking money, Lebowski? Where's the fucking money, Shithia ad? I used to do seasonal work sorting tax returns. Like 500 people in a warehouse-size room sorting through returns, stacking them in boxes. Ets. This one guy on me team, huge dude, a gentle gent, really nice. Suddenly one day he smashes the table he's working at, then flips a big box full of paperwork. It flew over my head and 20 feet away. He threw the table out of his way, then stormed out. Turns out he was getting his paycheck garnished for something or other. If the garnishment was for back taxes, the irony of the situation would have enraged me too. My mom. We had what we now refer to as the Jerry Springer Christmas when I was 7 or so. One aunt hated her sister-in-law and started screaming at her. Then shoving started. Husbands got involved. Then it just continued to devolve from there. My mom went straight into mediator mode and tried to calm everyone down, but it wasn't working. She decided to come check on us kids and found me cousin and me holding each other and sobbing because we were scared. The next thing I hear is her scary mom voice screaming over everyone, "Listen here, you motherfuckers. My kid is in there crying on Christmas because her family can't keep their shit together for one day a year we all see each other. You're gonna march your asses into that room single file and apologize to each kid individually. Then you're going to shut the hell up until I get them out of here. We're going to go find look at lights, and this family better be the picture of goddamn Christmas joy by the time we get back. My mom never really cussed in front of me and only ever used when things were really bad. That side of the family didn't celebrate Christmas for a few years after that. Edit. Thank you for the ords and kind words. May is tickled pink at all of the comments about how wonderful she is. I tell her every day how lucky I am to have her. All I can picture is National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation. Gonna be the happiest set of ashholes this side of the new house. I love you, Mom. She's the baddest you never want to fuck with. She said those things because she loved you so much that when others threatened your happiness, she flat out laid down the law in her house. She's a good mom. Be sure you let her know. Our adopted cousin has rad and had a meltdown at Christmas. This is our Jerry Springer Christmas. He was put in a bedroom to calm down while me grandma told me aunt she could take him. My aunt is the nicest, most giving, most genuinely bubbly person I have ever met, but in that moment, with tears falling down her face, she was screaming at Grandma, "Shut up, you don't know what it's like." I had to go home with Dad to help him calm down. He had flashbacks to his own Jerry Springer Christmas, and the cousins took some time apart so the one could get better, and we haven't actually had a full Christmas together since. This is amazing. Your mom is a badass and I love her. Mechanica worked with is getting verbally abused by a customer claiming he ripped him off. Guys going off saying all sorts of racist shit, then stepped up like he was gonna swing. Henry beat him to the punch, literally. Then he calmly walked to the back office and called the cops on himself. What did the cops do? Arrest Henry for defending himself. Then he calmly walked to the back office and called the cops on himself. Lawful good. My dad is the most mild-mannered person I have ever met. He is the most composed, level-headed man I know. I once saw him trip in our garage and land in a bucket of nails and screws to realize he had one lodged into his kneecap. He looked over at me and said, "Don't tell you, Mom." Shall overreact while he grabbed a pair of pliers and yanked out the screw. But when something happened to me special needs brother, he would get this sparkle in his eye that could scare a Navy SEAL. When I was 8 years old, my parents took me brother and I to eat at a restaurant, which was kind of a big deal because my brother was recently diagnosed with a degenerative physical health issue which was racking up huge medical debts. All while my dad lost his job after getting the bends on a work dive. We went to our favorite Mexican restaurant in town and parked in the handicapped spot nearest the front door. I still remember having an unusually light-hearted time in which I could see me parents' stress level subside and listened to funny stories about the past. We simply enjoyed a memorable dinner with lots of laughter. Looking back, I realized this was a big expense that me parents probably couldn't afford and sacrificed so we could have a normal night as a family. When we left the restaurant, we found a car parked next to us, not in a parking spot but in the yellow stripes immediately next to our van. Normally this might not be an issue, but my brother is in a wheelchair and we had a folding ramp, not the hydraulic lifts that you see today, but a heavy metal powder-coated ramp. This was a Friday night, so traffic was crazy busy, and my parents didn't feel comfortable just backing up into the street to load my brother, so my dad went into the restaurant to see if the manager could find the owner of the car and ask him to move. When my dad emerged from the restaurant, I saw a look that I have never seen before. It was one of focus, determination, and rage. He looked at me mom and told her to get in the car. She just hopped in and said ok in a way that indicated she knew something might go down. He turned to me and said, "Watch this shit." He unfolded the ramp and slammed it on the roof of the car next to us. then turned to explain that the manager told him I'm not responsible for what happens in the parking lot. Why don't you just figure something out? So he did too. Be clear there were maybe 4, 5 groups eating in the restaurant. He could have easily asked someone to move. We waited for a minute, and the manager came out yelling, "What air you doing? You can't." Though that this was when my dad lost it. At this point he picked up my brother's wheelchair with him in it, which weighed about 150, 200 ounces, and sat him on the hood of the car while yelling at the manager. He then jumped on the hood of the car and then picked my brother up to put him on the roof of the car, still giving the manager the business. He jumped up to the roof and calmly rolled my brother across the ramp and into our van, told me to get in, and calmly told the manager I figured something out. Since that day I have never seen anything remotely close to the same level of anger from him. We laugh about the story from time to time, and my dad is always quick to say that he overreacted, but I think he reacted just fine. Update or edit. Whoa, thanks for recognizing my dad for the badass that he is. We do believe that the car in question was the manager's because any customer could have seen what was happening from inside the restaurant, so we don't feel too bad. My dad never had to do this again because he had some incredibly bright orange stickers made that say "You park like an asshole" that he kept on him at all times just in case someone needs to be reminded of what they are by placing it on their driver's side window. Oh gosh, yeah. I'm disabled, ambulatory, but especially when I'm tired I need my wheelchair. I have found my fuse getting shorter when it comes to people abusing handicapped parking. I feel his response was appropriate. Your dad is a legend. That's freaking hilarious. Did he get in any trouble? Honestly, I understand how your dad felt. I was dead at watch this shit. Lol. Why is this not at the top? I love this guy's dad. Tell me who he is and I buy him a beer. I had a master sergeant at one of me units in the army. Dude was half asleep most of the time. I don't think I ever heard him talk more than once. One day all the guys get called into the large classroom and he's in there looking upset. He launches into a rant about how easy it is to pee into the toilet instead of on the ground in front of it. Dude was passionate about where people pissed. Drew a stick figure diagram, all angrily showing how you use one hand to stabilize and aim the pee into the toilet. I had to keep from laughing because he seemed like he was about to blow his lid. Tough. Would you want to trust the aim of somebody with a rifle if they can't even hit the toilet? He'll never understand who piss on the floor and shits on the walls in public toilets. My math teacher in middle school. He would even brag about not being angry and how it was a useless emotion. One day this kid pissed him off so bad he swiped all of the kids' shit off of the table in front of the whole class and kicked him out. Mine was me high school history teacher. Dude was great, always cool and collected. Really one of the best teachers I've ever had. He also happened to be a former Green Beret US Army Special Forces. One day we were in class and all us kids were being rowdy, obnoxious, and not paying attention in the least. All it took was him snapping with a "shut the hell up" for the entire room to go silent. He went right back to teaching, but there's still some heavy tension in the air. After a few minutes he apologized for losing his temper, but someone in our group collectively apologized for us and told him it was totally our fault. Only time I've ever seen a room full of teenagers humbled like that. The AA, Ron done messed up. It quite this made me laugh. My fifth grade teacher was a very calm and collected individual, except one time when a kid said her mother was a whore. She lost it. She was screaming about disrespect and stuff and even called her mom, put her on speaker and asked if she was a whore. In front of the whole class. I miss her all my Wait, the teacher called her own mom on speaker to ask if the mom was a whore to prove to the class that she wasn't. Did the mom admit it? On the phone, only on Wednesday. My first semester in college, I was in a math class with a horrible teacher. The entire class hated him. The girl that sat in front of me was very sweet and soft-spoken. One day, I don't remember what set her off, but she just snapped and started screaming at him. It caused such a commotion that someone called security to check if everything was okay. The teacher quickly dismissed security and went back to teaching like nothing had happened. I've noticed this with people who are aware they're assholes. When people call them out on it or lose their shit, they try to sweep it under the rug, move on as quickly as possible, and pretend nothing happened. My boss does this. I'm very chill, but every once in a while he pushes me over the edge and I tell him off. He often won't even respond or make a contact and then pretends like it never happened a few minutes later. If they acknowledge it, then they'd have to apologize, and that hurt their pride too much. Do you still remember what she screamed at the teacher? Ooh, I have a good one for this. So during me previous pandemic job, I worked with a really talented, super nice manager named James who was a total professional and very good with customers. He's one of those guys you look at and from sheer physical size you'd think he could easily be a bouncer, but he's just an absolute teddy bear of a human being. Didn't matter what changes came down from the top of the company or how business was going, dude just soldiered on as a beacon of positivity. Never got visibly mad or upset. He was pure Teflon to bad news. But one day I get a call from a janitorial service we contracted with to do a lot of the deeper cleaning at our facility. During this call they asked me to confirm that we have 2 day shifts and 1 overnight shift cleaning our building. I don't know why this came up exactly, but it was puzzling since we only ever had 1 day cleaning shift and 1 overnight cleaning shift, and this had been the case ever since I began working at that particular location, probably a year and a half, maybe 2 years by this point. They kept insisting that I must be mistaken and that surely there was a second shift during the day that I was just missing. However, I was the guy who had to regularly review their work and submit this feedback to the contracted company, so I was 100% certain that we only ever had the 1 day shift. Eventually, I put them on hold and informed James of this, and like a switch the dude completely changed his attitude. Gone was the James who always had a smile on his face and never let anything get to him. In his place arrived a stone-faced mountain of a man who asked me to let him talk to these people. I give him the phone. He goes into his office, and I watch through the window as he becomes increasingly animated, maybe even to the point of outright yelling, as the truth comes out that we had been being charged for this second daytime janitorial shift that had never actually existed. Was like watching a teddy bear turn into a grizzly in the span of 3 minutes. Dude was able to move past it and return to his normal self after the call, but while he was on it, I could tell he was just incensed by the fact we were being billed for services we weren't actually receiving. It is about janitorial services, but I've never actually encountered a good one. When I worked retail, I brought it up to my manager and store manager that there's no way they actually cleaned the floors in my department. My depth was in the back of the store cause they looked nasty. And strange things happen sometimes, like once we found a used condom and stuff behind the stock in the back off the store, and we were all shocked. It takes a lot for me to complain about something being dirty in a hardware store. Just saying. Anyway, store security somehow found out about me and various other people's complaints, and they decided to do an overnighter in the security booth. Turns out they'd clean half the store, then pull out a sleeping bag and literally fuck around for the rest of the shift. A gentle gent goes mad. Wait, So the janitorial services company was overcharging you guys by saying that there were more shifts than there actually were. My husband, Faya, he works in every hands on clinic and has to be super calm and steady because he's poking needles in the joints, elbows and knees of squeamish patients all day. I was brought into emergency because me labor wasn't progressing. I was running a fever, and baby was in distress. He knew an emergency C-section was the only way, but these two maternity nurses were just calmly chatting over me riffing form like it's tea time. He very calmly asked them twice to call for the anesthetist and get things going. But they knew he's always gentle and just nodded along without moving. More chatting. I was half stoned when I witnessed this. He slammed both palms on the side of the stretcher and said, "Is no one listening? Get the consultant in here." I was very proud of him that day. Colleague you at work was getting chewed out by a customer about something completely irrelevant. The dude was one of the most placid humans I've ever met, but he just snapped and tore into this guy for about 10 minutes until the manager came down and took him to one side. Never saw him lose it like that again. One time in high school, a couple bullies were up in this other kid's face. Dude was just sitting there like Anton Chigurh, horrified. Pile, no expression and staring straight ahead, clearly not hearing a thing. One of the bullies inched closer, and the kid decked him as hard as he could in the face. The bully was knocked to the floor, speechless, with his nose bleeding everywhere. The kid then calmly stood up, still with no emotion, calmly packed his things, and made his own way to the principal's office as if nothing at all had happened. It's still one of the most brutal things I've ever seen. It was like right out of a movie.